5 signs God is walking beside you and your whole life starts changing. There are moments in your life when something begins to shift quietly, almost gently, yet powerfully enough that your heart knows it isn't coming from you. It feels like a soft awakening, a steady strengthening, a calm rising inside your soul that does not match what your eyes see. And the truth is this: when a person starts walking in the presence of God, the transformation rarely begins with fireworks. It begins with subtle movements that only your spirit can recognize. I want to talk to you today as if you and I were sitting together, because this message is deeply personal. It touches the place in your life where God is working even when you don't fully notice it. The presence of God is not an emotion, not a tingling sensation, and not a spiritual high. It's the atmosphere where your soul finally breathes. It's the place where the noise around you loses its grip and the truth of who God is becomes more real than the pressure of your circumstances. When His presence surrounds you, you don't just visit peace, you live in it. You don't just hope for strength, you walk with it. And you don't just hear about His guidance, you begin to experience it in the silent, ordinary moments of your day. Many believers long for signs, longing to know, God, are you really with me? Are you truly guiding me? The Bible is clear: when His presence is upon your life, something in you begins to flourish. Not always in outward success first, but in the hidden parts of your heart, where God plants His seeds: peace, clarity, conviction, fruitfulness, and inner transformation. These are signs not of religion, but of relationship. Not of striving, but of dwelling. So before we walk through the 7 signs the Bible gives us, let me speak this over you. If you're here right now listening to these words, it's not an accident. God draws people into truth at the exact moment they're ready to receive it. And I believe He's bringing you here because there are signs already unfolding in your life. Signs that He is much closer than you realize. Signs that His presence is shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for a season of flourishing that only He can produce. Let's walk into these truths together, slowly and honestly, so you can recognize what God has been doing in you all along. Number 1. You feel an unexplainable peace that doesn't match your circumstances. One of the clearest signs that you are walking in God's presence is the kind of peace that simply does not make sense to the world around you. It's not the peace that comes from solved problems, perfect plans, or life finally going your way. It's deep. It settles into your spirit, even when the storm around you hasn't stopped. And you know this peace isn't something you created, because nothing in your situation has changed, but something in you has. This is the peace Paul describes in Philippians 4:7, the peace that surpasses all understanding. It's the peace that protects your heart and mind like a shield, even when your circumstances try to shake your confidence. When God's presence surrounds you, you stop reacting the way you used to. The things that once kept you awake at night no longer have the same power. The anxieties that used to rush into your mind now hit a spiritual wall because your soul knows God is near. And here's the beautiful thing: this peace is not loud. It doesn't shout. It settles. It rests. It fills the gaps where fear used to live. There's a stillness that rises within you, not because everything is easy, but because you know you are not alone. You begin to sense that someone greater is carrying what once crushed you. People may look at you and ask, how are you so calm right now? And the honest answer is, you don't know how, except that God is with you. His presence changes your posture. His nearness quiets the noise. His hand steadies what used to tremble in you. This is not denial. This is not pretending everything is fine. This is the supernatural reality of walking with the one who is in control. When God's presence rests on your life, peace becomes your new normal. Not because life is simple, but because your heart has found its refuge in Him. This peace is often the first sign that He is drawing you closer, holding you together, and covering you in ways you never experienced before. It is heaven's whisper, I am here. Number 2, you notice God orchestrated alignments and divine appointments. When you're walking in God's presence, life stops feeling random. Moments stop feeling accidental. Conversations, opportunities, and connections begin to line up in ways you know you could never have arranged on your own. It's as if God gently reaches into the flow of your days and starts placing people, answers, and open doors right where you need them. Not too early, not too late, but perfectly timed. Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us that when we trust the Lord with all our heart and stop leaning on our own understanding, He will direct our paths. That means He doesn't just walk with you, He engineers the route beneath your feet. And the more His presence rests on your life, the more you begin to notice these divine fingerprints everywhere. You meet someone who speaks exactly what your heart needed. You stumble into a conversation that confirms what you've been praying about. You take a step you thought was small, only to find it leads to a breakthrough you didn't even expect. These are not coincidences, they are divine appointments. Moments God prepared long before you arrived. And here is the remarkable part. When God orchestrates something, it comes with ease. Not the ease of comfort, but the ease of alignment. Things fall into place without you forcing them. Doors open without you pushing. Answers arrive without you chasing. Provision shows up in ways that feel almost too precise, too gentle, too timely to be anything but God. You begin to realize that His presence isn't just something you feel. It's something you see in the way He orders your steps. And even when you don't fully understand what He's doing, there is a deep assurance that He is guiding you exactly where you need to be. These alignments are God's way of saying, I'm leading you, I'm preparing the path, keep walking with me. And when you recognize them, your faith grows, your confidence strengthens, and your heart begins to flourish under the gentle choreography of God's sovereign hand. Number 3, your desires begin to shift toward what pleases God, not what pleases the flesh. One of the deepest signs that you're truly walking in God's presence is the quiet transformation of your desires. Not the desires you show to others, but the desires hidden in the private corners of your heart. When God draws near, He doesn't just change your habits, He changes what you want. The things that once pulled you in no longer satisfy you the way they used to. The temptations that once felt irresistible lose their power. The noise of the world fades, and something holier begins to take root inside you. Psalm 37:4 teaches us that when we delight ourselves in the Lord, He gives us the desires of our heart. Many interpret this as God granting our wishes, but the deeper truth is that God reshapes our desires so they begin to reflect His will. You don't chase the same validation, attention, or pleasures anymore. Your soul starts craving purity, truth, closeness with Him, and choices that honor His name. You notice it in small but unmistakable ways. You feel drawn to prayer, even when you're tired. You want to forgive someone even though part of you still hurts. You hunger for the Word of God more than for the distractions you used to run to. The things that once entertained you now leave you empty, while the things of God suddenly feel rich, alive, and meaningful. This shift doesn't come from guilt or pressure. It comes from presence. When God is near, holiness becomes beautiful, obedience becomes natural, and the more time you spend with Him, the more your heart aligns with His heart. People around you may not understand this change. They might say you're becoming different, and the truth is, you are. Not because you're trying to impress God, but because God's presence is reshaping who you are from the inside out. The desires of the flesh weaken, and the desires of the Spirit grow stronger. This transformation is one of the most powerful signs that God is working deeply within you. When your wants begin to shift, your life soon follows. And what flourishes next is a life that reflects His goodness, His purpose, and His glory. Number 4, you experience conviction, not condemnation, a gentle pull back to holiness. When you're walking in God's presence, you begin to experience a different kind of inner voice. Not one that shames you, but one that lovingly redirects you. This is the work of the Holy Spirit. Jesus said in John 16:8 that the Spirit would convict the world of sin, righteousness, and judgment. But this conviction is not harsh or crushing. It is gentle, personal, and filled with mercy. It doesn't push you away from God. It pulls you closer to Him. Condemnation is loud, heavy, hopeless. It tells you that you're a failure, that you'll never change, and that God is disappointed in you. That voice is not from God. Condemnation drives you into hiding. Conviction, on the other hand, opens the door for healing. It whispers truth into your soul and reminds you that you belong to God, even when you've stumbled. When His presence surrounds you, your heart becomes more sensitive. You notice attitudes, words, or actions that once seemed normal, but now feel out of place. Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because something inside you longs to honor Him. You feel a soft tug when you drift too far, a quiet discomfort when you compromise, and a holy ache that says, this is not who you are anymore. And here's the miracle. Instead of running from God when you mess up, you run to Him. You feel drawn to prayer, drawn to repentance, drawn to restoration. You don't want to carry distance between you and God, because His presence has become precious to you. Like the prodigal son, something awakens within you and calls you home. This kind of conviction is evidence that God is actively working in your heart. It shows that He has not abandoned you, that His grace is shaping you, and that His Spirit is guiding you toward holiness. You're not being punished, you're being refined. You're not being rejected, you're being restored. When conviction becomes a gentle, constant companion in your life, it is one of the clearest signs that you are walking in God's presence. His love doesn't just comfort you, it transforms you. And every time He calls you back, it's because He wants you closer, stronger, and more aligned with who He created you to be. Number 5, you start bearing spiritual fruit without forcing it. When you're truly walking in God's presence, change doesn't just happen around you, it happens within you. And one of the most undeniable signs of His nearness is that spiritual fruit begins to grow in your life naturally, quietly, almost effortlessly. Not because you are trying harder or disciplining yourself into perfection, but because God's Spirit is working in you from the inside out. Galatians 5:22-23 describes the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These qualities are not the result of human willpower. They are the overflow of a heart connected to the presence of God. Just as a branch doesn't strain to produce fruit, you don't strain to become who God is shaping you to be. Spiritual fruit grows from abiding, not striving. You begin noticing it in everyday moments. Situations that used to provoke anger now draw out patience. People who once irritated you now stir compassion. Instead of reacting out of fear or pride, you find yourself responding with grace, and even you are surprised, because this wasn't your natural behavior before. Something has shifted, or rather, someone is shaping you. There is a new softness in your words, a new steadiness in your heart, a new desire to bless rather than win. Your character begins reflecting Christ more clearly, not because you're trying to impress God, but because His presence is transforming you quietly and consistently. And here's the beautiful truth. Spiritual fruit is evidence of spiritual health. When God's presence flows through your life, fruit becomes the natural result. You don't have to force joy, it rises in you. You don't have to pretend to be kind. Kindness becomes your instinct. You don't have to labor to be self-controlled. God strengthens you with a calm resolve that feels rooted and unshakable. People may even ask, what changed in you? And the honest answer is simple: God is with me. His presence is cultivating things in you that no amount of self-effort could produce. You're flourishing in ways that feel supernatural, because this fruit is not temporary, not shallow, and not dependent on circumstances. It is the unmistakable evidence that the Spirit of God is alive, active, and growing something eternal within you. When spiritual fruit begins to blossom in your life without striving, it's a sign that you are walking closely, beautifully, in the presence of God. Number 6, your battles change, and you begin winning them in unexpected ways. When you're walking in God's presence, the battles you face no longer feel the same. It's not that life suddenly becomes easy. It's that you begin to recognize a strength greater than your own fighting on your behalf. The struggles that once drained you now meet a different version of you, a version covered, guided, and empowered by God Himself. And the victories that follow often come in ways you never could have predicted or orchestrated. Exodus 14:14 captures this perfectly. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. When Israel stood trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army, they didn't need a better plan. They needed God's presence. And when His presence arrived, the impossible split open. What looked like defeat became deliverance. What looked like a trap became a pathway. That's what happens when God steps into your battles. Your battles might not look like the Red Sea, but the principle is the same. When God is with you, attacks lose their power, fear loses its grip, and enemies lose their advantage. You find strength to resist temptations that used to control you. You overcome habits that once felt unbreakable. You face opposition with calm instead of panic, because something inside you knows, this fight isn't mine alone. And then there are the victories, the quiet, surprising, supernatural victories. Doors that were locked suddenly open. People who opposed you turn away without explanation. Problems that should have destroyed you crumble unexpectedly. Breakthroughs come through channels you never imagined. God wins battles in ways that remind you He is not limited by logic, strength, or timing. Sometimes He removes the obstacle. Sometimes He strengthens you to walk through it. Sometimes He simply silences what was rising against you. But every time His presence changes the outcome. Even your internal battles begin to shift. The anxiety you once carried begins to loosen. The insecurity that lived in your chest starts to fade. The emotional wars that kept you exhausted are slowly replaced with clarity, stability, and hope. These are victories too, victories no one else sees but God does. Walking in God's presence doesn't mean you stop battling. It means you stop battling alone. And the more you walk with Him, the more you will see that your greatest breakthroughs were never the result of your strength, but of His. His presence fights for you, covers you, and leads you into victories that show His power, His love, and His faithfulness. When your battles start ending differently, when you begin to win in ways that don't match your ability, it is a powerful sign that God's presence is going before you. Number 7. You sense God's nearness in your daily life, not just in church. One of the most beautiful signs that you're walking in God's presence is when His nearness stops being something you feel only during worship or in moments of crisis, and instead becomes a quiet companionship throughout your day. You begin to live with an awareness that God is not just watching over you from heaven. He is walking with you, guiding you, calming you, and speaking to you in the ordinary rhythm of life. Psalm 16:11 says, "In your presence there is fullness of joy." That fullness isn't reserved for spiritual mountaintops. It spills into the smallest corners of your life. The drive to work, the quiet morning before the house wakes up, the moments when you're folding laundry, eating lunch, or sitting alone with your thoughts. His presence begins to feel less like a moment you step into and more like an atmosphere you live in. You start noticing it in ways you never did before. A verse rises in your mind exactly when you need it. A sense of peace settles on you in the middle of a confusing situation. A quiet courage lifts your heart when you feel overwhelmed. A soft prompting nudges you toward a choice that honors Him. Even when life feels chaotic, something in you stays anchored. This nearness isn't emotional hype. It's relational closeness. It's the awareness that God is not far away. He is beside you, within you, and for you. You sense His whisper when you pray. You sense His comfort when you cry. You sense His pleasure when you obey. And even on the days when you feel tired, dry, or discouraged, you still know He hasn't left you, because His presence has become a part of your everyday breathing. You begin to talk to God more naturally, not as a ritual but as a conversation. You invite Him into decisions, fears, and moments of gratitude. Worship becomes less about music and more about posture, a heart inclined toward Him. This intimacy grows so deeply that even silence feels sacred, because you know He is there. When God's presence becomes your daily companion, it transforms how you experience life. You no longer walk through your days alone. You no longer carry burdens by yourself. You no longer feel abandoned when things go wrong. His nearness becomes your comfort, your direction, and your joy. 4. This is one of the clearest signs that your life is flourishing spiritually. God is no longer just a part of your Sundays. He becomes the center of your everyday. And once you've tasted this closeness, nothing else in the world can satisfy your heart the same way. Conclusion: when God's presence walks with you, your life can't stay the same. If these signs have been showing up in your life, even softly, even gradually, it means something powerful. God is not just visiting you, He is walking with you. His presence is shaping your thoughts, guiding your steps, strengthening your spirit, and preparing you for a life that flourishes from the inside out. This kind of flourishing isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it grows like roots under the soil, unseen, steady, unshakable. But eventually it breaks through the surface, and everyone around you can see the transformation God has been building within you. Walking in His presence changes everything. It changes the way you feel peace. It changes the way you interpret circumstances. It changes your desires, your battles, your decisions, your reactions, your character, and even the atmosphere of your heart. And the most beautiful part is this: you don't have to force any of it. God does the work. You simply stay close, stay surrendered, and stay willing. If you're hearing this right now, let it sink into your spirit. God is not far from you. He is nearer than you think. And He is calling you deeper into a walk that is rich, peaceful, joyful, and full of purpose. Keep leaning into Him. Keep seeking Him. Keep trusting Him. Your life will continue to flourish in ways only His presence can produce. If this message spoke to your heart, I invite you to stay connected. Like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe so you don't miss the next message. And remember this truth as you go: when God walks with you, nothing in your life remains ordinary. Everything becomes touched by His glory.